Welcome, everyone. First and foremost, we just want to thank you for taking the time out to join us today on this three-part series called Breaking New Grounds, Post-Pandemic Kickstart to Success. Today, we're going to be focusing on session one, which is a healthy mindset, as we look at that being the foundation to success. My name is Jacqueline Chuanuka. I'm your moderator for today. Today we have five phenomenal leaders that will be our panel speakers, our keynote speakers for today's session of session one. This is truly an honor to be among such amazing women, women of integrity, women that walk the walk when it comes to things as it pertains to mental health. And so I'm so excited and honored and privileged to moderate their discussion amongst each other to really unpack mental health and mental health wellness and self-care, particularly during what we're going through right now. As you all know, the last couple of weeks has been extremely hard, particularly those of African descent in North America. It's been reflective and also a hard spot. Why? I lived in Atlanta, Georgia for 2 years. I'm a true ATLian. They've adopted me. And when I saw the killing of Ahmaud Arbery out in Athens, Georgia, I knew specifically what that would have done. And it's been something we all knew that has happened in terms of American history and to a broader extent in Canadian history when you look at police brutality and racism and anti-Black racism. But the murder of George Floyd specifically has done something I don't think we have seen ever. And I think it's so timely. Why? We planned this 2 months ago. This was something we just thought was a need for our community. And now with everything encapsulating around it, it was just something that I feel, I don't know how this aligned itself, but all I can say is having the honor and privilege to be amongst these leaders who have very interesting perspectives on mental health and well-being. And it's just something that I think is so poignant and so timely for everyone to really be mindful and reflective as we go through this healing process, as we go through this discussion. And so I want you to sit back, get your snacks, get your tea, get whatever makes you happy in this time together from 1 to 2:30. We'll be having a Q&A later on. And also, please join us on our social media of Casa Foundation. We're on YouTube Live right now. We're on Facebook Live. We're on Twitter Live. We're so happy that you guys were able to join us today. Please send in your questions through comments. Our team, our social media team will funnel those questions into our Zoom chat right now that you have for the speakers, anything that comes up that you want them to talk about or answer. They're here for you. We've made this time and this space for them to provide their expertise, but it's also a collaborative and inter-exchange of learning and reciprocal learning amongst each other. So without further ado, I'm gonna do quickly a bio of each of the speakers. I'm gonna turn it over to our host, our amazing host today, Dr. Oyalade, and then we're gonna start this discussion. So without further ado, I'm gonna put on my snazzy glasses over here because you know your girl sometimes needs some little help. So I'm gonna go and I'm gonna introduce our speakers, our keynote speakers of today. The first is Jamelia Morgan. Jamelia is a youth mental health advocate that has built a solid reputation for her innovative programs and community initiatives across the GTA. She has specialized in building successful programs that focus on mental health for organizations such as Big Brothers Big Sisters, Eclipse Mississauga, and Nexus Youth Services. She has a knack for creating personal development workshops while collaborating with organizations such as BMO, the 519, Sheridan College, Ryerson DMZ, Salesforce, and Microsoft Canada. She has success with supporting youth with mental health concerns and was the catalyst to the successful launch of an informal drop-in counseling program called Posse Talks, which aims to provide mentorship, mental health support, and connections to other community services. She has had the privilege to work with children and youth who have faced challenges with concurrent diagnosis, emotional regulation difficulties, anxiety, and childhood trauma. She hopes to continue to create new initiatives and that aim to empower youth to break down their own barriers and lead happier and healthy lives. Without further ado, I just want to welcome, I am so honored to have Jamelia Morgan with us today. I welcome you, Jamelia. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time and your contribution. Our next up speaker, now, I've met her a couple years ago when I just came out of grad school from Atlanta, Georgia, and I needed something to do because your girl didn't have a job. And I was looking for a job. And so I said, let me just volunteer. And we met at a community event where we both were honored as Young, Black, and Gifted back in 2016, 2017. And her speech blew me away, her authenticity, her realness, her rawness. And so without further ado, I'm gonna introduce Stacey Ann Buchanan, actress, filmmaker, mental health advocate, and TEDx speaker. Stacey Ann Buchanan's impact, entrepreneurial work ethic, and achievements within the last 6 years has led her to be listed as one of the 100 Black women to watch in Canada. Also, the 150 Black women making Canada better. Also, one of the 150 leading Canadians for mental health, and one of the 30 women internationally to make Highly Fabulous Women's Power List in 2018, honey. She was also awarded the Young Femme Leader Award and the Entrepreneur of the Year Award. Stacey Ann made Canadian history with her award-winning documentary, The Blind Stigma, debuted as the first documentary produced in Canada that takes a look at how mental health is perceived within the Black community. Her most recent accolades include accomplishing her first TEDx talk and being recognized for her entrepreneurial spirit and an inspiration of change at the 2019 International Women's Day Awards ceremony held at the Jamaican Canadian Center. Adding to her credentials is her role as co-donor of the Buchanan Scholarship. This award is given to a student entering their first year of post-secondary education in their liberal arts or the fine arts program, and is based on a demonstrated financial need and having the excellent academic record at the same time. Miss Buchanan is the motivational leader and the mental health advocate who boldly shares her intricately powerful journey towards her success while inspiring others to turn their pain into power, honey, and to make the passion their paycheck. Without further ado, I just want to thank you, Stacey Ann Buchanan, for taking the time. You were on the ground last week to the March of Anti-Black Racism. I saw you online. You are really about that life. And I wanna just say thank you for taking the time to be with us and to share as we unpack this discussion for today. We're so honored to have you. Next up is the fabulous Tamara Henningham. Tamara Henningham is the CEO and founder of Henningham and Associates. With over a decade of experience in the field, Tamara specializes in parent-teen conflict and healthy relationships. Her goal is destigmatizing therapy by making it accessible and affordable. Seeking therapy should be as normal as a visit to the doctor. A strong believer in the phrase, health is wealth, Tamara aspires to create a space where individuals can interact, learn, and explore within themselves and their perceived reality. Understanding the power of positive thinking, Tamara developed a wellness group called Musing of Minds. Musing of Minds focuses on self-development, empowerment through thoughtful discussion, and collective support, at which encourages others to utilize effective mental health techniques. I am so honored to have Tamara with us today. I met Tamara and her associate firm last year out in a gathering where the BBPA, the Black Business Professional Association, had the grandson of the Marcus Garvey share his experience in the lineage of Pan-Africanism. And I met these beautiful, successful women who are counselors in the space of mental health, and we exchanged contacts. And I knew when we were having this session, we needed her expertise. And so I'm so thankful, Tamara, for having you with us today. Thank you for your time. And we're looking forward to hearing from you and what you have to provide in terms of things that we can look into with techniques as it pertains to mental health wellness. The next up is a leader and a rising star. Brianna Chanel Phillip. Brianna Chanel Phillip is an extremely passionate about youth as a very special place in her heart, specifically for Black women. A graduate from the University Guelph Humber Family and Community Social Services degree program, and currently a Master's of Social Work candidate, Brianna has over 7 years of experience working with youth, families, and community in various capacities. Brianna's current role is being the Black Youth Case Lead at Youth Initiatives, also known as FYI. She has also been a mentor in the Women's Health and Women's Hands Networking Mentorship Program for young Black women. Additionally, Brianna is a poet, spoken word artist of all time, in my opinion, and a published author. She prides herself in giving voice to stories often left untold and using her gift of writing to reveal the beauty and deficits of society. Brianna is also the founder of a community movement called Soul Tree Community. Soul Tree Community creates initiatives and events that encourage the building and healing of communities. I am so honored to have Brianna with us today. Brianna, we are so thankful. You are a gift. I've seen your gift. I've seen how it has impacted young people who have heard your spoken word. I appreciate you as not only as a leader, but a rising star at this time, and your voice is so needed. And so I'm so thankful that you made time to be with us today. And last but not least, our hostess with the mostest. This woman's rap sheet can go on for eons in time. So I'm gonna make it very brief, but this is not who she is. It's only just skimming off the surface. She is such a gift to me. She is one of my professional mentors. She has spoken life into my life at the most very hard and low moments as a young Black African Canadian professional. She is someone that I look to for advisement. And so without further ado, I wanna read the professional bio that cannot do her justice. It is Dr. Olutoyin Oyalade. Dr. Oyalade is not just a woman in leadership, she is a leader, period. She is the quintessential personification of Canadian values of diversity, equity, gender equality, humility, and integrity, and everything she represents and everything she sets her sights to achieve. Dr. Oyalade has seamlessly obtained over 2 decades of professional executive management and leadership expertise domestically and internationally. She has an impressive academic background. She has earned her bachelor's degree in philosophy from Ondo State University, Odo Ekiti, Nigeria. She has also received an MBA from Nigeria's premier university of Ife. She also has completed executive management programs that sharpened and perfected her leadership skills in executive management. For instance, she graduated from Wharton School Advancement Management Program, as well as currently she now have a PhD right now from the University of Maryland. She received in 2016 her doctorate degree in management back in 2016. During her over 2 decades successful career in investment and corporate executive management, she oversaw funds management and client management operations for bank subsidiaries in the United Kingdom and Ghana. Dr. Oyalade managed Intercontinental Bank Group fund portfolio of $8 billion, not million, billion. And she has responsibility for that fund investment as a group executive of the bank's investment management group between 2007 to 2010. Without further ado, before we start, I want to turn it over to the host, the CEO and founder of Casa Foundation, who has created this space for the exchange for young professionals of African descent, from the Caribbean to continental Africa, to the United States, to Central America, to Asia, to Australia. Wherever there is Indigenous people, she has made this space today for us to have a discussion on the importance of a healthy mindset. So without further ado, I want to turn it over to Dr. Oyalade to open up the floor for opening remarks. Thank you. Dr. Oyalade, I think you're on mute. Yeah.
Thank you.
No worries.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Thank you very much.
No
I was just
worries.
saying thank you so much, Jackie, because if anybody If anybody was to hire me, then I probably would send them to you to get a copy of my resume, right? Thank you so much.
I'm honored. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Um, Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. It's such a joy and it's such a privilege also, honor to welcome you to the Exchange Forum. This is the 15th edition of our forum called The Exchange. However, this is the first time we're having this forum as a webinar, obviously because of the current trends and the current situation, the pandemic. So I welcome you and I say to you all that it's an honor, it's a privilege, and I'm really excited to host you all this afternoon. And there's no time better than this, than now, to actually talk about the issues of mindset, wellness, and how to make sure that we're in the right space and with the right mindset for us to leverage the opportunities that could still exist, even in a pandemic, even in situations like this. So first and foremost, I'm going to start this afternoon by acknowledging God, our creator, because he alone has kept us alive and well through these uncertain times. You know, the events of the last few months obviously was not even envisaged. Nobody could anticipate this kind of situation. We never thought it possible. Only on the 5th of March, we had one of our main events, Women Inspire. And at that event, I recall vividly the Honorable Minister Mary Ng, the Minister of Small Businesses in Canada, encouraging all the people in the room. You know, she just came back from a trip to Africa with the Prime Minister of Canada, and they gave us a feedback, and they had signed a lot of deals, and she was looking forward to having people go on a mission, and that we should get going, moving, you know, so we can take opportunities that present itself in Africa. Little did we know that we will all be cooped up in our various homes, even up until a time like this, June. It's already 3 months since that event. But that just tells you about the providence of the Most High God, that He alone understands the times and the seasons, and He chooses to, you know, dictate it as He pleases. So I would just say that there are no words to describe right now the pains and the losses of the various ones that have become missing, the people that have passed on in a pandemic like this, the fears and the doubts that people have been experiencing. You know, you want to go out and do some chores that were taken as regular before now, but you need to say a prayer before you even get to the grocery store. And so there are no words to really describe the pain of the losses that have been experienced and the struggles that people are experiencing up to such a time as this to keep their businesses running and their careers up. You know, the people are looking and struggling to keep their ventures afloat, even while under a lockdown. No one would have imagined all of this. And obviously, as Jackie mentioned earlier, we can't even imagine or talk about the challenging last few days on account of the murder of George Floyd. It's simply unbelievable. However, the fact remains this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, that we're still able to come together at such a time as this to make some sense, to teach ourselves, and to learn from others on how to proceed in the journey of life after a sequence of such devastating events. This can only be a proof of your resiliency, your tenacity, and obviously the strength and stamina that each one of you joining us this afternoon has within them. We can only account that to God's grace and providence. And so I say a resounding welcome to you all at this 15th edition of the Exchange webinar. So some of you might ask, what is this exchange? What is this all about? The Exchange is one of Casa Foundation's forums, and it focuses on young professionals, startup groups, emerging entrepreneurs, innovators, emerging businesses, inventors, creators, and it provides an access to a platform such as this. Although this is a webinar, this holds on a quarterly basis at our location or in any designated hotel in town, downtown Toronto usually. And it gives people the opportunity across various verticals to come together to discuss their ideas with like-minded groups of experts, of pioneers, and of creators. Over the years, the Exchange started in 2015, and over the years, the forum has created various collaborators, people looking to either start a revenue generating product, a service, a business, a venture. And they're either looking for capital, they're looking for resources, or they're looking to provide a service to the community or in their various countries. And they come together, coming to Toronto from various parts, coming together to discuss with experts, people who have already established businesses of their own and who are willing and available, to share ideas, to share wisdom, to share knowledge and understanding with such groups of people. And that's what this forum, the exchange, is about. Since 2015, we've held 14 editions, and this is the 15th one. And for some of the people that need capital partners, some of them also need mentors. We ensure within our capacities, within our networks and our community and tribe, to connect them to some of these resources that some of them require. Over the years, we've had various people from government, from the private sector, CEOs of various established companies, founders and creators, entrepreneurs like you and I, and startup groups also, to share their ideas and learnings, at the Exchange Forum. There is no doubt that, generally speaking, the Black race appears to be the most challenged within the Committee of Nations, within the communities in which we find ourselves, within the associations, the groups, the nations, the countries, and places that we belong to. But as challenging as this narrative appears to be or sound, the most profound solution for us lies in our own hands. That's usually the way I say it. I do recall sometimes when I'm asked to speak on women-related issues, I think I did one on TED, and I think the title of that one was "What's Wrong with Women?" And I recall making a final statement that no matter how terrible, no matter how difficult the journey of women appear to have been over the years, the solution to the women gender-related barriers and issues actually still lie in the hands of women. They are the solution that they need. We just need to take the bulls by the horn and get things going and seek the support and seek the mentorship and seek the capital and look up to the people that we need to look up to so that we can get what they seem to have that we still haven't gotten, because it's part of the journey of life to do it that way. And so exactly that also is what I'm going to say to us this afternoon as we gather, as we listen to all these experts in the room, and as people come from all walks of life to join us today. I'm just going to say that as challenging as that narrative sounds, the most profound solution still lies in our hands, because the fact is that the proof of the pudding is actually in the eating of that pudding. And so it behoves on us, it's imperative that we as that Black community, the people that we represent, we continue to groom ourselves, we continue to encourage the people under our watch, and we continue to lift ourselves up. First, by proving that the pudding that we have can be eaten. And second of all, that we have what it takes and we'll continue to give it, and we'll continue to make the giant leaps that we need to make so that we will be reckoned with and in the very places that we have not been reckoned with before now. In the places that matter, we would speak and our voices will be heard, because we're going to prove it day and night that we have more than what it takes. For some of the startups in the room today, I'm just going to say, there's a proverb I think it's an African proverb, that if you sit around the barber long enough, you will get a haircut. Something like that. I think I'm paraphrasing it. And so I'm going to say to some of the startups and the groups just starting businesses and so on in the room today, that we will not only get that haircut according to that proverb, we will actually take over. We'll take over from the barber, whoever those barbers are in their various expertise in the various places that they are. The Black businesses, the Black professionals, the young professionals, the young groups and the startups of today will actually become those ones taking over tomorrow, because we have what it takes. Let me leave you with a few nuggets this afternoon. In my journey of entrepreneurship, I have learned from a lot of people that have made themselves available as mentors, as partners, as counselors to me at various points in my trajectory. Some of the things, and we can talk about that at some point. This is a three-part webinar. And so I'm sure I will have an opportunity to speak and answer a few questions as we go on. Some of the few nuggets that I've learned, as we go on, is that we must be mindful of procrastination. Procrastination is usually a thief of life. When we want to do something deliberately, we've got to be intentional and deliberate about what we need to do. And pushing it forward and pushing it forward, of course, within a reasonable time is important. But not having a specific date to get things executed has a way of robbing people at the end of the day, because time waits for no one. And so I'm going to say this afternoon, as you listen to the experts and as you ask a few questions in the room today, that we need to hang out with people who make dreams happen. Usually, generally speaking, they also say, oh, there are three groups of people that make: the people that watch things happen, the people that ask why things are happening or how things are happening, or if it's even possible for things to happen. However, there's that category of people who make things happen, not just because of their sheer prowess, not because of their educational qualifications or their background, but more importantly, because they give it their best shot, perhaps. Perhaps they are more courageous. And the courage, meaning that it's not an absence of fear. It's actually that despite their fears, they continue to do what they want to do, and they continue to fulfill the dreams that they believe they have, or the God-given destiny that they believe they've been called to, because they refuse to give up. And so procrastination will be mitigated, and that issue of procrastination will be mitigated if we end up hanging out with people like that. We need to stay focused. We don't tolerate excuses, and we don't associate ourselves with people with negative minds. Of course, there will always be a lot of negativity, but we can choose to decide. We can choose what we listen to. We can choose to decide how we address those issues of negativity around us, particularly the types that we have seen in the last few days. And we can choose to make things happen and to keep moving forward and to make our voices heard in the right places so that we can move forward. It's also important to write down our dreams and connect with people that we know that are knowledgeable in our field, so that the things that they have done, we will not only replicate them, we will even do them better. We need to build mutual relationships, get mentors, people that are like-minded, people who understand what it means to create solutions across the nations, not just in our own comfort zone, but creating solutions that are of eternal value, creating solutions that people can actually adopt, creating solutions not just within our comfort zones for the people that like us, but creating solutions even for people generally that at the end of the day will become a reference point. We need to add value to other people's lives, because in so doing, when we add value to other people's lives, when we solve problems for other people, value will come back to us. Help will come back to us. This is how life works. We give and we get. We give and we get. We keep giving and we keep getting. The more we give, the more we get. And this is called value. That's my understanding of it. And so the more we add value to other people's lives, more value will be added to us. Several challenges are around us, as has been said today, but I want to share with you and say to you that the people that become successful, those success stories that we hear about in as many places as we've had them, they are the stories of the people that refuse to give up. It is not that they necessarily did not have challenges. It is not that they necessarily did not fail, or that they didn't fall at some point in their lives, or that they are even in a situation of a falling state. What is important is that they found a way to pick up themselves. And here they are again, sharing those failures with other people, so that other people can learn how not to fail, how not to fail. Dear participants this afternoon, I'm just going to say by wrapping up that it is an honor, it is a privilege, and it is a blessing to welcome these speakers that I have in the room with me today, not only because of what they've achieved, not only because they've also created time to be here today, but because from their wealth of experience, I believe that we will all be better people. We can always learn from experts in the field. I'm asking you today to not only listen, ask questions. I am imploring you that you take down notes and that you find time to note even the contact details of each one of these people, because everybody's got a story. And so some of the tips that you will hear today, they're not just the full story. They're just clips and notable points that they'll be sharing with you. There is a major, major history behind that story. And so I will ask you to listen, to take notes, and find a way to contact us at the end of it all, so that we can link you up with each one of these guys. Thank you so much for all my friends watching from and joining us this afternoon from various parts of Nigeria and so on, and Africa and parts of Toronto. I say welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
Awesome. Honestly, well said, Dr. Olu. Thank you so much for your words of wisdom. I think everything you've described is so timely, but also something we've kind of known in terms of your mindset dictates your body. So wherever your mind goes, your body goes. And so it's really important right now, particularly people of African descent, particularly us in our community, to understand this is a pivotal moment that we are right now in. And we can decide how we're going to use this moment for our buildup or for regression. Are we going to keep doing the same things over again? Or are we going to make actionable decisions today to say, I want to be a better version of myself first, so that I can have a healthy mindset in order to give to others? Because I was told you can't give what you don't have. And so if you don't have a healthy mindset, how can you impart value in anyone's life? And so this is why we're having this discussion. And I'm so excited because we're going to kick it off with the first question. And so you guys, I'm just so excited. This has taken us a couple of months, but I'm really, really excited because I think this is just everything happening at this moment is truly divine. So without further ado, I'm gonna start with the first question, and I'm gonna shoot it to Stacey M. Buchanan. So my question to you is, what is the difference between self-care and well-being? And why is it important that we all check our mental health state from time to time, especially during these unprecedented times that we're currently living in as we come out of post-COVID, but right now as we're at the heart of the movement of anti-Black racism? You know, we would love to hear your thoughts. And this is a moment where I will throw a question to any of the keynote speakers first, but this is a panel discussion amongst the keynote speakers to pivot from each other and to add to the conversation. So again, I'm shooting it to Stacey Ann, but we're gonna have it more of a collective discussion. So we would love to hear from you, Stacey Ann, to start this discussion really on the difference between self-care and well-being and why it's important to check our mental health state from time to time right now. Mute.
Hi, thank you guys. I want to apologize for moving a lot earlier. My computer died, and so I was using it for my phone. Anyways, I'm here and I'm present, and I'm about to answer your question. So the difference between self-care and well-being is that well-being, we can look at well-being from more of a holistic point of view. And well-being is your mind and your body, and they're coming together, combining, but they're influencing each other, right? And it's more of everything that you do overall, and it's like your well-being is telling you that you want happiness, you want to create this world of happiness, but I want to portray that more into inner peace. So your well-being is telling you, I want to be at peace, and I want to have this inner peace. Your self-care, these are little tools and little habits and daily habits that you use to help project your well-being. It's a loaded question, and there's a differences in between it. So self-care is what you do in order to maintain your well-being from my perspective, and there's different ways, right? So with your self-care, it includes like your physical, your emotional health, your mental health. And when it comes collectively now in our community, self-care is sometimes hashed out when you see it online, you see it in the media. It's usually hashed out as like you're sitting in a bubbly bathtub with bubbles all around you and you're drinking a glass of wine or champagne. But for the Black community, our self-care really stems from healing. There is so much healing that we need to take on. There's so much post-traumatic healing, generational healing that we need. And in order for us to come back and go through this time that we're going through, we need to collectively come together and heal. And we also need to make sure that we're not, when you look I don't know if anyone here seen the death of George Floyd. I personally couldn't watch it. As a mental health advocate,
I couldn't either. Yeah.
I could not watch that. And so it's like when one of us gets hurt, it's a collective pain that I don't think people understand that we feel. And sometimes I'm not saying for us to not feel the pain, but take your time to digress and reflect and take yourself away from that. There's so much that's going on in the media. And the more you watch it, I've had people say the more I watch it, the more I'm starting to feel rage and hate in my heart. And we don't need to add any more, I don't want to say negativity because it's such a wide general word, but let's go with that, any more negativity to the turmoil that we're having. Because being Black is exhausting. And it's sad for me to say this in 2020 because it's a battle that we're constantly fighting between ourselves. Do we speak out or do we remain silent? If we speak out, we could lose jobs, we could lose friends, we could lose allies, we could lose potential clients. If we keep it in, it's detrimental to our mental health and it is killing us. I don't know if my answer is straying away from the question, but it's basically saying how can we maneuver through that? Absolutely. And we have to come collectively and talk and not just talk, but walk the walk as well. We have a lot of work that we need to do, and we cannot do it alone. We need to do it together.
That's a brilliant response. And just pivoting off of that with Tamara and some of the clients that you've helped, like, what's your perspective from that lens? It'd be really great to hear from you on that.
So in regards to what I often do is because I work with both the parents and the children simultaneously, right? Because we know that a lot of children or a lot of parents are the grown-up version of themselves, right? The child within themselves that they haven't had the chance to, exactly what Stacey Ann has said, heal from. So then they don't necessarily have the tools to then navigate their own child through it. So with that, I'm often explaining to them what exactly self-care means, you know, because we have our jargon and we're always like, oh yeah, self-care. And we're just like, I don't know what that means. Does that mean I get drunk all the time? I smoke weed all the time? And what I would like to explain is just self-care is more so about what allows you to see, even my own jargon with decompress, right? What does decompress mean? So what allows you to relax and feel relaxed and a little bit calm? So if you're feeling like emotionally heightened because of all the things that's been going on, what can allow you to take a break from that? Because when we're constantly being exposed to certain things, we naturally internalize these things, right? Yeah. And there's a lot of things I want to go around that, even down to internalized racism. And as much as we are expecting our non-Black folks to be doing their work on racism, I definitely want to highlight our own work in terms of internalized racism, because we were brought up in a racist society, even within ourselves. That's why the whole colorism thing, but yes. Not going to digress. So self-care.
Yes,
right?
No, but it's you bring up something because, and before I pivot to the youth space with Jem and Bree, colorism is a big issue within our community, and it has led to a lot of mental health illness and low self-esteem and low self-worth among women specifically. I grew up in this city I love called Toronto, but there was a time in the late 90s when there was like groups on Facebook called light skin versus dark skin and all of these things that you get internalized to think if you're lighter, you're pretty, if you're darker, deep. I don't even say that. I see deeply, beautifully pigmented, something is wrong with you. And then unfortunately, we have some of our young men who also don't love the skin that they're in that are perpetuating those narratives. So it's so important that we're honest about that, because as much as anti-Black racism, yes, from a group sense, it's like Black and everything else. But within the group, we do have intra-racism. And I learned that at Morehouse School of Medicine in Atlanta, Georgia. We talked about how intra-racism as a result of slavery or colonization have led that certain groups of people within the group are better off, or they have more chances of getting jobs or more chances of just being successful or having a great life because of the color toneness of their skin. So it's so good that you brought it up. And again, this is as much as the topic was more self-care, but it's really good to talk about that because we don't talk about that. We think that, oh, we're all Black. We are, but within the group, I can say, you know, certain times I would hear comments on certain people I knew growing up on my block saying, you know, oh, she's pretty and light skinned. Like,
and the good hair.
Good hair. Or you're dark, you're pretty for a dark skinned girl. Like I don't know about y'all, but I've gotten that a lot. So it's like, it's crazy to me growing up where now the consciousness of Blackness is so received, naturalness and this, but we have to understand, as Stacey Ann alluded to, we have a lot of healing to do within our community. There's a lot of damage. It's deeply rooted because of racism and the way it is. And before I turn it over to Jem and Bree, you know, I just said to someone the other day, racism and anti-Black racism is violent. I don't think people need to understand. It's not just the act of the grotesque murder of, rest in peace, George Floyd, but the everyday microaggressions that we receive on the job, that they know they can do certain things that don't cross HR lines, but they do it anyway. Mm-hmm. It is violent. And I think we need to be very mindful of that so that we understand, in order to move forward, that we fully address the full issue. And going over to you, Jem and Bree, when it comes to youth and the work you're doing with youth, like, how have you guys been able to provide solutions and a safe space when it comes to addressing self-care and well-being? Like, how has your experience been in those particular spaces?
So I work specifically with Black youth. And I think that in this time, because of the era that we live in, which is full of social media, and we're bombarded not only with images of this grotesque stuff that's happening, but we're also bombarded with what other people are feeling. And something that I've been very intentional about with my youth is, I understand that you're upset, but are you upset because that's how you feel? Or are you upset because you are hearing other people say that they're upset? And you feel like you have to feel that way because you're Black and because this is happening to Black people. And I think a very big part of self-care, kind of going off of what Stacey Ann said about it, for Black people, it means a lot of healing, is that we need to be able to identify what we're feeling. And I think that that's a huge gap in that, because Black people are very resilient, and our resilience has been romanticized, which means that we're not always able to name and acknowledge what it is that we're feeling. And I think that for me, with my youth, I'm like, okay, so I'm hearing the things that you're saying. It sounds like a lot of things that I'm seeing on social media. How do you feel? And let's name those feelings. So that's kind of what I've been working on. And obviously that's just the beginning of a lot of work that needs to be done. But I think that being able to name your feelings is a big part of self-care.
Excellent. And with you, Jem, have you noticed that with the youth that you engage with and you work with? Has that been a common thing you've been seeing as well, in terms of the people internalizing what's happening on social media and just reacting versus truly being in pain? How has your experience been within that particular aspect when you engage with your youth?
I think what I'm finding most often with the young people that I am interacting with is them trying to find out, how do I express my pain, right? And sort of playing off of what Bree said, is not really identifying it through somebody else, right? Because we're seeing a lot of salacious arguments and comments within the media right now. So you're kind of drawn into, the pain of other people, and then you have the pain that you're dealing with yourself, amongst other things that we're all dealing with within COVID. So I think one thing that I've noticed is that piece of self-awareness, right? Where's your sense of well-being? So an example I give them is, think of your life in a set of 4 jars: your emotional, your emotional health, your happiness, your mental health, your physical well-being. Each and every day we're making deposits and we're taking withdrawals. And if we're not able to be aware of those levels, I think that is when we see sometimes violence continue to perpetuate. We see people reacting in ways, and as a society, sometimes we're taken aback. But it's because sometimes we're not aware of where those levels are. We're not paying attention to our deposits and withdrawals. And especially right now, we're seeing a lot of withdrawals from us having to adjust our work environments, some people being in homes that are really not healthy and being confined to that living space. So it's understanding in the moment right now, what can I do to continue to deposit into my happiness, right? And it could be as simple as, me plugging out or going for a walk. It could be me, watching that YouTube video and channeling it on a tutorial that has to do with my art skills, right? I think that when we're looking at the topic of self-care, we often think that self-care means money, but self-care is also sleep. Self-care is also doing something that makes me feel good about myself, right? And when we're doing that, we're also sending a message to ourselves that we are important. So regardless of the narrative outside, it's understanding that internal dialogue. When we control that, we're able to navigate through these situations that we're seeing in really, unfortunately, seeing in really, inappropriate lights, where we're able to navigate them differently, because internally we have started to navigate and do some of that work, whether it's through, again, looking at how I can take care of myself, looking at the appropriate outlets that make me feel good about myself, and then even utilizing that and sharing that space for others, making it comfortable for other people to share their narrative according to how they see it, and understanding I don't have to see it the same as them.
Well said, beautiful. And it just goes into, when we speak about our community, the next question is, why do you think the term mental health is stigmatized within the Black community specifically? Like, where do you think that comes from? And as a community, how can we create safe spaces when it comes to someone really needing help, when they're more inclined to reaching out rather than suffering in silence? Like, where do you think, Brianna, that comes from? Like, why do you think mental health, now it's kind of embraced, it's everywhere, but I know growing up, we've been through, I know when it comes to Africans in continental Africa, we've been through systemic colonization. And for the most part, some of us have been through wars where it has left our parents traumatized and they function. Like, I think about my parents going through 2 civil wars, having to flee my country, with my mom I honestly was born in a different African country before I came to Canada as a baby. But the trauma my parents experienced, and to see them functioning and happy, I sometimes wonder, like, are they still healed from post-traumatic stress? Because, I don't know how they were able to do what they do. So when it comes to mental health, why do you think we are the people, Black people, we're so resilient and so powerful, but why do you think we don't talk about it? And now we're able to talk about it. But before, growing up, someone would say that they're depressed. People would be like, depressed about what? Get up, shrug it off. It's a new day, get over it. But why do you think that's the case? Like, why do you think we have not been able to embrace when a child at 5 or 3 is telling mommy, I don't feel okay? Why do you think that was the case back then? And why do you think it's now being embraced today?
So this conversation could go on forever.
I know.
But going off of what you said, like, I'm of Caribbean parentage. My parents are Grenadian. Hey. And I think that, in, like, going back to what I was saying about, like, our pain being romanticized, I feel like in our community, being okay when you're not okay is, like, celebrated. Like, you gotta push through, like, you gotta be strong. And, like, resilience is a beautiful thing, but at the same time, through resilience, we still have to work through that stuff. And I think that we often don't have the space to work through that stuff. And because our parents made it through, and I say that with big air quotes, because it looks like they made it through because certain things got done. But the reality is, while those things were getting done, it was coming out in other ways. And I think oftentimes, because, like, I know with myself, I always often look back at my parents, like, they did this, they did that. And, like, I'm at the age that they were at this time, and I'm not doing those things. But there are other things that I am doing, and I'm comparing myself to them and their progress, not recognizing that there were things that they were going through that they didn't speak to anybody about, and feeling like I need to match up to that. And I think that a lot of us Blackies, because of not only our own internalized, like, seeing what they went through and how they did it, not only because it's internalized, but because it's also repeated by them. Like, what do you have to complain about? I did this, and I was okay. So I think that the reason why it's like that, it's because of, once again, romanticizing being okay when we're not okay. I think it's also the whole thing of, like, you keep your business inside the house. You don't go tell nobody your business.
That's right.
You don't seek professional help because you're betraying your family if you do. So amongst many other things, I think that's a big place of where the stigma comes from.
Beautiful. And I want to turn it over to Stacey Ann, because she actually did an amazing Canadian historic documentary talking about the demystifization of mental health within the Black community. And I really want to know from you, Stacey Ann, what made you decide to do that project? And why do you think it was such an important thing to talk about when it comes to stigmatization of mental health in our community?
Okay, thank you, Jacqueline. I personally did, I did that project from my personal experiences and struggles with mental illness. I still today struggle with anxiety, and I went through a period of my life where I was suicidally depressed. And I'm from the Caribbean too, Jamaica.
Yeah. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Listen, I have love for my West Indian people. Trust me.
Yes. So I grew up in Jamaica until I was almost 15, and then I came here. And going through depression, the only person that I felt comfortable talking to about it was my dad. And when I went to my father about it, my big Rastafarian Jamaican dad, his view was like, you drink some tea, you read your Bible, and you pray about it. And nothing was happening. And so when I continuously went to him 3 times, he was saying that since I like to chat so much, how about I tell my business to strangers? And it's just saying what you said, Brianna. My dad's fear was if I told a friend was going to tell another friend, it's going to tell another friend, and somehow it's going to reach back in Jamaica that he's raising a mad daughter. So the whole stigma is a shame. It's this veil of shame that we wear, and we don't want anybody to know. Because let's look at it. God forbid, what a person that has mental illness looks haggard. They're homeless. You know, in the Caribbean, you're just known as mad, and sometimes they're disregarded from their parents, like from family. Nobody wants anything to do with them, and we have to get rid of that whole stigma, because we have this thing where, and I'm going to piggyback what Brianna said. It's like we romanticize what it is to be resilient human beings, and so we take on all of this load. And we think that being strong is carrying all this load by ourselves, when being strong is having the ability to put that down and saying, I'm no longer carrying this because I can't. So in our community, the reason why we don't really talk about mental illness is because of the shame. We don't want anybody to know our business, and you're supposed to be strong. And also the language around it too. We think all of a sudden, we think mental illness or mental health, you're mad. There's, so we need to have languages, and we need to understand the language, and we need to have better communication, positive communication around mental illness. So I basically did this documentary to show that I cannot be the only Black person that's going through the struggle of not sharing what is happening in my life and how I'm feeling. There has to be other Black Canadians and Black people in general that are going through the struggle that we just keep to ourselves.
Beautiful. Like, honestly, I think you hit it right on the head in terms of the family dynamic and keeping the family business in the family household. It's a very African thing as well. And so I want to pivot it to Dr. Ayalade, because she is a mother. She's an amazing mom, a supportive mother. I know her children, and they're doing great. But Dr. Olu, as also a parent, how do you think this discussion when it comes to the stigma of mental health is, like, in terms of ways in which you view and you can only speak for yourself, but how parents can support their children when they come to them and say, Mom, I'm not feeling okay. Like, how are ways that parents can facilitate that conversation? And if in fact there needs to be an intervention, like, what are ways where, from an African, West Indian, Caribbean, or the Black experience, how can parents also support their children in this,
My approach to that is first and foremost fostering that high level of confidence within children, so that children understand, that confidence level is very critical in the raising of children. Ensuring that your children understand the values for which you stand, irrespective of the background, because like we said, the backgrounds are different one from the other. But values, principles, guidelines, what you believe in, the general ethos, whether it's from the community, from the home front, these values need to be imbued into our children as they grow. So now we're already adults in our own case. We're young adults, adults in the real sense of it, very matured adults and so on. Is it still possible to imbue those values in us? The answer is yes, it is. However, it's usually better to do it. You remember what I mean? How you say that train up a child, the community trains up that child anyway, because everybody joins you in doing so.
Village raises
yeah,
a child. Yeah,
exactly. Sure. As you train up that child, imbue those values into the children, the community within you raise the child is also very important, because largely from the African community, that's primarily my own, that's my background. Generally, Africans raise within the community, so that even when you are not at home, somebody saw something, they come back, and then, you call them snitches, but they tell you what your children did while you were away. That's part of the raising. And so the values, the don'ts, the do's, in the process of that, children begin to understand that. Because if there are consequences for those actions, then that begins to matter at very early, from early childhood. However, that's just a general statement. Does it apply? The question, does it apply to every background? The answer is no. So as we raise our children, then it behoves also on parents or whoever serves as a parent in such situations to begin to imbue confidence in those children. Confidence becomes so critical. It is a lack of confidence that makes children end up experiencing what you call that very low levels of esteem. The low level of esteem is a major causal factor. It accounts for what happens to most people in the journey of life, such that as people hear it stated over and over and over, you're no good, you're too light, you're too black, you're too white, you're not up to par. The more they hear that, the more it affects the psyche of everyone. That's just general human nature. Everybody wants to hear something good about them. And so you find in the journey of life that the more people are told, the more they are rejected, the more there's a lot of prejudice, there's a lot of segregation, and so on. The more esteem people lose. And the more people lose esteem, then they lack confidence. They're not able to hold their heads high. And they're also and so there are consequences of that. They're either looking for people to join them at that level of low esteem by pulling people down along the lines so that they can have a comfort zone of general groups of people with low esteem. And then they feel wonderful within general groups of people who have experienced that low esteem. Because people also need to feel bigger than their situation. So there is a group that would generally respond to those gaps by gathering themselves around people with low esteem so that they can feel high in the midst of such people. There's another group that would seek help by finding people with very high levels of esteem and learn from what they're doing so that they can boost. It's almost like boosting your own immunity by taking some sort of vaccination. Yes. And so you need to find people who have very high levels of esteem. And it's not just something that anybody is born with. It's actually something that you groom and you gain over time from education, from relationships, from communities, from mentors, and people who keep pumping it into you until it reaches such high levels where you can actually now speak and say, I really have very high level of esteem. Yes. Yeah. So so at the end of the day, the education can give it, the background can give it. So you find people from very rich homes, so they have everything they want, and so they seem to not have any lack. And so, and it doesn't matter which community. This is actually a general view. At the end of the day, you expect that because they have everything, they have no lack, everything should go well. But I'm sure from the evidence-based research and from some of the experiential learning and interactions with various communities and people, you find that the case is not so. Yes. So why is that? It is because there's a deep-seated feeling in every human being to feel needed And that's why at parental level, parents must find a way of embracing their children, of giving hugs, of showing love, not just self-care, showing love to those children, understanding their needs, and making children become their friends. Because when your child becomes your friend, the child should be able to share with you most of the things going on. I mean, maybe most, 70%, 60%. So that when there is trouble, you know that ordinarily this child will not react or respond this way. And you nip it in the bud. Now, if it's far gone, then seeking mental health experts, practitioners, care outside of your own immediate environment becomes imperative. So these are some of the things that we talk about, how to manage it. And the list is not exhaustive. There's so many things to be done. But I think what comes primarily to mind, is that when you have a support ecosystem, remember the nuggets I gave when at the opening, when you have a good support ecosystem around you of people that you can rely on, of people well ahead of you. As much as we must have people that we feel comfortable with, we must also have in our immediate, consistent circle, people that we can look up to. When we have people that we can look up to, they're doing so great and they're doing the things that we would want to do. It's not just about mentorship. It's about the fact that they're constantly there for you to look up to. And they're constantly there for you to be accountable to all the time. Not once in 2, 3 years, not once in 6 months. You would see that you would shape up because you're looking up to somebody who is going to question your actions. You tweet something, because they follow you, they're asking, did you just do that? So because you know they would ask you, you are mindful of what you're tweeting. The fact that you're publishing it that, oh, wow, I'm going to get drunk because I'm doing self-care. The next day, somebody is going to ask you questions. And I guess it will place a restraint on you. Also, the fact that you have somebody looking up to you, meaning that you also have mentees, that also keeps you in check. Because if I know Jackie is going to ask me how I did that yesterday, Stephanie is going to ask me what I said yesterday, I'll be a little more mindful of how I say those things. I think it starts from those basics.
Yeah. Well said. Thank you so much, Dr. Olu. And you touched upon something that I think is so important. And I really want Tamara to talk about this to kick it off. When it comes to mental health and relationships, now this could be relationships as it pertains to platonic, it can be, relationships as it pertains to dating, marriages, parent, child. How is it your experience within the Black community, mental health? Have you noticed, due to our history as a people, our relationships have been, either the media has perceived them to be disfragmented or they are in reality disfragmented? I don't know, because I've seen great Black love around me. I've also seen very toxic Black love around me. I've seen great sisterhood of girls that I love. I've also been around toxic girlfriend circles of frenemies. So I know it can be, it's not a one answer fits all, but when it comes to counseling and when it comes to just the focus on mental health and relationships as a community, and I want the keynote speakers, all of you guys, to talk about this because, we're relational beings. How has been your experience personally, or just in terms of observation, mental health intersect when it comes to managing effective relationships? And how can people notice toxic or narcissistic behavioral traits before it leads to someone getting sucked in and not able to get out? Because I think a lot of times people who prey, predators, they see certain attributes in very vulnerable people and they take advantage of that. So how has your experience been within that scope?
So it seems like it's a two-part question, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the first part was just how does mental health and relationship correlate, right?
Yeah.
It kind of comes back to what we were initially talking about, even down to with the self-care, well-being, and also what I heard a lot of the panelists speak about is not having the tools to be able to engage personally and relationally.
Mm-hmm.
So regardless if it's a business relationship, a platonic relationship, a romantic relationship, there's still certain things that we need to be able to do, right? So that it's healthy and so that it's mutual.
Mm-hmm.
I'll speak about tools. So a lot of the times in my session is I'm teaching individuals how to validate, how to empathize, because everyone feels that they have the ability to empathize, but only within certain avenues, right? So what I often am doing is a lot of empathy building exercises with my clients and teaching them how to see things from their person, whoever it is, whether it's their child, their business partner, whatever, from the other person's perspective. And and how to validate. There's different ways to validate, because when people say, you know, I was really sad today because of you know, I missed the bus, someone can say, well, at least you can afford to take the bus, right? So in them trying to show them the bright side, they often dismiss the experience that they currently have, that individual is sharing with them, which is a lot of what we're seeing now with the Black community. The Black community is saying something and people are saying, well, at least you can do this. This is the brighter side. But it's like, granted, I'm glad that I can do this, but this is my experience right now and it's really hard. And so I think sometimes we dismiss, you know, not maliciously as well, right? Because sometimes we don't have these tools, or we're not practicing them often enough so that it no longer becomes a part of our, you know, interaction, that, you know, we do this with good intention. And I kind of want to separate the two between intentionality and impact. We often do things with good intentions. However, the impact is what it was, right? We didn't mean to do this because we were trying to do this, but the reality of what actually happened is this. So I think in that part, understanding how we can have great intentions, but still have, you know, it didn't come out right. You know, I meant to say it like this way, but it didn't come out right. And it's my bad. And recognizing that piece. So the accountability piece. And often I'm explaining to people not to look at the situation as it's my fault. Look at the situation as, what role did I play in this interaction? Even if it's a 70-30 response where you did 30% of wrong and the other person did 70, in that 30%, how could you have made it to 20? You know, how can you take small steps so that it's not overwhelming for you? Because maybe for you to do that 30 was a lot, right? Especially if this is a new skill you're trying to do, like, okay, I'm not gonna cuss anybody out. I'm gonna walk away. I'm gonna practice my conflict resolution that Tamara told me about, you know. So when you're trying to be the better person, sometimes it's really hard for you to execute that. But recognizing that you may not always have the tools, but the other piece of it is, if you make a mistake, you could always repair it. So even if I came to you and said, Jacqueline, I didn't like the way how you talked to me, and we walked away and we're upset with each other, you can always come back and say, Jacqueline, I was in a place and I didn't mean to do this. I'm sorry for doing this, or whatever your apology style is. You could always come back and repair the relationship. People feel that once they've said what they've said, there's no going back.
Right.
And so I would actually argue that the repair is actually more important than the interaction, right? Because with parents, they feel like, well, that happened and now my child hates me forever. Not necessarily. Kids are very forgiving, you know, and they have their own level of resiliency that I'm always speaking to their parents about giving them that benefit of the doubt that they can overcome. Because sometimes, you know, we as parents, we want to protect, right? And sometimes by protecting, we enable certain things and all types of things. But I'm not trying to go off too much on a tangent, because I think I'm mindful of the time. But the other piece is the toxic traits. So what I often explain to people is to look at things through a concept, right? Don't look at it as, because I had a talk just yesterday about singleness. Don't look at, my partner doesn't like putting away the dishes. Look at it as, what about putting away the dishes that continuously trigger you? Is it that they don't listen to you? You don't feel heard? Is it that they dismiss when you say things? So these are the things that you look at, like, contextually, right? You're not just looking at these little, he didn't put away the dishes, he didn't do this, he didn't do that. It's more so about, what does that mean in the larger scheme of things? So the easiest way to kind of conceptualize it is just looking at the larger picture of what that means and why that's triggering for you as well, because that informs your healing and your understanding about yourself. So when you have high self-care and being well, so well-being, you have a high level of self-awareness. So you know what's going on with yourself, because sometimes when you're unaware, you may not know that you're already triggered. So when you engage your child, engage anyone around you, you're not patient, right? You're latching off and like, what? And you're like, oh, sorry, my bad, I didn't mean to. So that's where we have a lot of displaced anger sometimes, where whoever is in our face at that moment, they're getting the brunt of it, but they may not be the source of it. So in terms of toxic traits, I think it's really just up to us to understand what is not helpful for us, because what I may deem as toxic, you may deem different, right? So understanding more so within yourself, what do I feel that's not helpful for my growth and my development? And then with that, how can I communicate that to the other person, right? So even down to the communication piece, sometimes it's really hard to communicate what exactly you want to say, but then that's where, you know, there's tools, there's professionals that you can go to kind of help you navigate those things that are a little bit more complex.
Awesome. And before I turn it over to the other keynote speakers, we actually just got a question. The question is, I think to that point, the conversations often become challenging when another does not want to be accountable for the part in the interaction. I know you're not responsible of how others respond, but what burden seems to be more so on the Black community. It's a great topic of discussion. So I guess and I know who this person is. I don't want to really shut them up. We went to Morehouse School of Medicine together, so I know who you are, but thank you for the question. So basically what he wants to know is, when it comes to interactions, when it comes to relationships, it's often challenging when others don't want to take accountability for their part. I know they keep saying that if people hate you, it's not my business. Like, it's such a, you know, it's not my business. And it's true. Like, if someone just doesn't feel you, it really isn't your business. But at the end of the day, it does become burdensome within our community when relationally, and I'll just say this generally without any being like an actual fact, our men in our community are not really designed to be as emotionally forthcoming at times. They could have a lot going on within themselves, but the way they're raised, and I'll use the African context, they're raised to, for the most sense, to provide and protect. But if they're going through an emotional situation that's traumatic, as a man, they are trained to take care, provide, and protect, but not necessarily to address, because that's not really what a man does per se. Have any of you ladies experienced that? You don't need to go into your own personal situation, but in general, have you observed within even our Black men, their inability to relationally express their mental health or their emotional state, that has sometimes made situations even more worse? Because we women, we love to express. Some of us, even who are introverted, we need to receive love. That's how we're designed to receive. And it's for most women and all women. But I think within our community, I've noticed a hindrance of the expressiveness of the emotional state. So I don't know what you think, Jem, but I guess for me, it's just addressing this gentleman's question is, how do we offload the burden of people sometimes not taking accountability for their actions? And how do we move forward from that, knowing that position?
Well, I think there's two parts. There's the part sort of playing off of what Tamara said is our response, because I'm responsible for how I interact or how I can respond to what I'm being brought to, the situation that's being brought to me, right? So I may not have the ability to control their narrative or their worldview, but I can continue to adjust and look at my worldview and my experience. So there's two pieces that I'll touch on quickly. One is to understand when I'm triggered in a situation with somebody else, well, why is that triggering for me, right? We each have our own narratives based on our worldview. And then based on that, we're practicing who we think we are, right? Now, if my experience in the past, as it's been a lot of times for the Black community, is that our experiences are invalidated, that our voice has been taken away, even going back to colonization, when you think about it, our voices were taken away. And we learned to acclimatize ourselves to this idea and this mindset that my feelings are not validated, right? From the family context. And then that goes into these relationships, right? How then validate my daughter's feelings when I've not learned to have that experience myself, when that has not been an area of safety, right? So we have these toxic internal dialogues that we're having, and it's about having that conversation with ourselves first, right? And how can we manage these dialogues and these experiences ourselves? And then also looking at, well, what will our boundaries be when we encounter these experiences, right? In the workplace, in romantic relationships, it's about assessing, okay, well, when these experiences happen to me, what will my boundaries look like? Because again, I may not be able to necessarily change the narrative of somebody else, but I can, number one, look at how's impacting me, understand my triggers, and then at times the empathy maybe that I've received, I can give it to somebody else. That role modeling is hugely powerful. I think there are times where we're seeing individuals struggling with their mental health, and our automatic thought is, oh, you know what, I have to cut off this relationship, right? Sometimes we also have to be okay to learn from each other, right? When it is safe and healthy, right? So I'll give an example is like when you have a sick child, sometimes in the hospital, or you have two siblings from the same household that are sick, what the doctor sometimes will do, they'll co-bed them together, right? And that's an opportunity for their immune system to be built up from one another, right? So I think sometimes as the community, there's parts of us that need healing, and sometimes it's learning to how can we co-bed with one another? How can we try to see it from not just our perspective, but the perspective of the person who's also hurting, right? And then if there are things within me that I can safely, without overextending my boundaries, utilize to support somebody else, there's opportunities for change because I'm modeling perhaps what they didn't get. If I show the idea of validating someone else's experiences, it may help them to realize that they themselves, that has not been the experience for them. And especially with our Black men, as you mentioned, when you're looking at Black men and things like even the topic of suicide, they're 4 times more likely than women, right? So it shows you that there's not even a space for them to comfortably talk about their feelings. And so that's what I think a piece that we're missing in today's society, right? This safe space for people to say, yes, this happened to me. And oftentimes we say like in our culture, but that's how us Jamaicans do, right? Like for myself as Jamaican, but just because that's how we do doesn't make it right. Right. So how can we, I guess, just to kind of tie it off, is just create spaces where, those feelings can be recognized and validated. And then again, just doing that internal check within ourselves of how do we interact with those experiences? And then how do we navigate our own boundaries based on the experiences that we're confronted with?
Thank you so much. And I want to turn it over to Stacey and Brianna, but before we do, I have a couple of questions coming in from social media, and I'm very mindful of time. We're 5 minutes before this is ending, but we might go over just 5 more minutes, so we might end at 2:40, and I'm so sorry. And the conversation, I just didn't want to cut it off because I really enjoy just hearing everyone's perspectives. But when it comes to you, Brianna, in terms of, your experience with this particular experience relationally, what have you observed within your sphere of influence within your community setting when it comes to this particular topic?
A lot of what Jem said kind of covers my experience. And if we're speaking, we speak a lot about this in regards to romantic relationship, but I think we also often neglect the friendship part too. I think that we need to learn, and it's a balance. I think Stacey answered something in the beginning that being Black is tiring. And it's true. Being Black is tiring. And this question is making me think more about that, because it's like, we know how traumatized our community is, our individual communities are within Blackness. And it's like, you have to deal with your own trauma, but then you also have to deal with someone else's trauma. And it is tiring. But I think that, as Jem was saying, like, we need to make space for people. And I think that it's also about managing expectations. If I am going to someone and saying, this is how I saw that something happened, this is how I perceive it, and this is how I feel like you played a part in it. My expectation I should not expect that they're automatically going to be like, yeah, you're right. What is the reason why I'm saying that? The reason why I'm telling you that is because I need to express to you how I feel, and I need to express to you the way that I saw this situation play out. Yeah. For me, that's my reason. So though I'm going to have feelings about if you don't accept that, I can't really be mad at you because you didn't take on my perspective. My goal for going into it and telling you that is for my self-expression and for me to get that off my chest. And was that goal met? Yeah. Will you accept that? Maybe, maybe not. But that's kind of what it is. Like, I can't force your hand, right? And I think like, and this is spoken about a lot in social media, the whole like quick to cut people off mentality. I think that's very damaging, especially within our community, because it continues to close those spaces of people being able to express themselves. Because like, if I say this way, then that person's gonna cut me off. If I say this that way, then that person's gonna cut me off. And I think that we need to make more room for each other. And be more honest with each other. Like, this is mentality. I think that's very damaging, especially within our community, because it continues to close spaces of people being able to express themselves. Because like, if I say this way, then that person's gonna cut me off. If I say this that way, then that person's gonna cut me off. And I think that we need to make more room for each other. And be more honest with each other. Like, this is mentality that's very damaging, especially within our community, because it.
Thank you so much, Brianna. I think we had a bit of a technical situation, but I think we have it under control now. And I think your comment on managing expectations in people is very key. Being someone that naturally is expressive and empathetic to a pretty good extent, but sometimes I used to be to a fault, thinking that my value system and the way I think and the way I view things, you should see that. You should understand why I'm hurt. You should get it. And I realized, depending on how people are raised and their worldview will really dictate even the most egregious forms of acts of violence, as we saw on May 25th, seem as if nothing happened. You know what I'm saying? And so you make such a good point. And I want to turn it over to Stacey and then the questions, because we got to get through these questions because people sent them in. I really want their voices to be heard. Stacey, I'm with the question on relationships as it pertains to mental health. Like, what's been your, in terms of observational analysis with that as it pertains to the Black community?
Like with us, like being that we're not speaking out much. I'm sorry, can you just refresh me?
Yeah, no, in terms of just how we relationally manage our relationships within our personal life, if it's friendship, business, romantic, where's the breakdown in terms of that, of when someone says, I'm hurting, why do you think as a community, we're so used to dismissing people versus talking it out and trying to fight for those relationships, particularly relationships that are very strategic for our destiny? Like, there's certain people that, in my opinion, God has placed to propel you forward. And I think sometimes because of a difference of opinion or perspective or a heated conversation, instead of saying we respectfully agree to disagree, there's some people that just would just cut you off just for no reason. Like, why do you think that's the case?
We're in this climatic culture where everything is canceled, right? It's the cancel culture. It's about me and my feelings are supposed to be validated. Yes, your feelings are supposed to be validated, but we're so quick to cancel someone if they don't agree.
Right.
If you don't like what I post, if you come with an argument that is validated, of course, but you don't like it, we're so quick to cut people off. And we're doing that because I think society's given this new norm where it's like being selfish is self-care. But like, yeah, I can understand you're being selfish, but when we're talking about being selfish, we're talking about taking time to take care of yourself so that you can be a better person, you can come out better, and you can communicate better with people around you. So people are just so quick to be in this cancel culture, which I personally loathe, because I think what it's doing, it's so damaging, definitely damaging to our community. And we're not moving forward together. We're actually spreading apart and we're going backwards. We're easily canceling each other out, and you're cutting this person off because you can cut somebody off if they're detrimental to your mental health. I stand by that 100%. But there's a time between somebody being detrimental to you and challenging.
Yes.
Work through those challenges. That's how we can come together, and that's a part of our healing. That's my opinion. Sorry, I get passionate about this, ladies, everyone
Yes,
on the panel,
yes,
but
honey,
yeah,
this is
it's
why
true.
we're here. And then it's important that we talk about it because it's true and it's things that we
selfish,
all
canceling culture, climatic culture. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And I just want to turn it over to the social media questions. We have a lot coming in. So the first question is, so how do we as a community come together and create spaces to heal within future generations to practice self-care? The next question is, and maybe I'll just read them and then we can kind of discuss them collectively. And how do we measure individual mental health improvement? And the other one, before I go to the bigger one, is how do we address re-traumatization of our community as you facilitate the healing process? So do anyone have a particular response, particularly when it comes to how if you want to take that, Stacey? Okay.
I want to take the first question. You see, when we don't talk, we're in this huge silence, right? Especially when it comes to our mental health and our mental well-being. And I don't understand that mental illness in the Black community is a silent killer. It is a silent killer. And when silent, we need to start talking. And not just talking and having negative, dismissive conversations, but having positive conversations around mental health. When you start talking, you create a community. When you create this community wants change. When the community is rising for change, you create resources. And resources, then we create from resources a safe space. Mm-hmm. Meaning that we are safe spaces, right? So if someone comes to you and they express what they're going through, you don't look at them or you don't quick to say, but you drive a Benz, you live in a condo, you travel. None of that matters. If someone gets the strength to speak to you, especially within our community when we're so conditioned to be strong and we have it all together, and someone comes to you and want to share that with you, it's a privilege and it's an honor, and all we really need, and I say we because I remember when I was suicidally depressed, you couldn't tell because I had the best week in the world. My nails were done, my makeup was done, and I was traveling #my best life. And no one knew that because I was masking a pain, an internal pain that I didn't know how to address because the language around me and the safe space wasn't around me for me to talk. So the safe space starts within us. So when someone comes to you and express that they're going through something, it's an honor and it's a privilege. So take the time to just listen because all they really want to start off with is someone to listen and listen without no judgment. It doesn't matter what they have. It doesn't matter what they own. It doesn't matter how much money or their job. People have their own individual struggle that they're dealing with. And no struggle shouldn't be compared. We're not comparing struggles right now. It's a struggle. So take that opportunity and time to really listen to what person has to say. And the safe space starts here. So when we start linking together, we're creating bigger safe space.
Beautiful. Well said. And the next question is, how do we measure individual mental health improvement?
I mean, I think it really depends on, number one, the tools and my awareness of what I would call mental health literacy, because a lot of times we don't even recognize the symptoms. When you're looking at it, like statistically, youth 16 to 24 have the highest prevalence of youth mental health cases or just mental health diagnosis amongst any other age group, right? And we know that the human brain is still developing up to the age of 25. So my question would be like, well, what tools have we given the community in the first place? And what accountability is there at a community level for us to make this mandatory? Right now we have a bit of mobilization happening and you're seeing funds being thrown around. But my question is, well, where's the accountability for those funds? And where's the accountability on the systems level? Number one, to not just give us money, but to create accountability from the police, even in our schools. Like look at the report in the Toronto Star about how the disparaging treatments of young Black youth. So if I'm gonna learn how to kind of manage that, number one, I need a safe space within my community to reach out when I need support and to validate that, yes, I have these experiences and it's okay for me to receive help because I may not have the tools. If I don't have the tools, I need to know that my community will support me and be held accountable when things are happening that make it so my personal well-being is not in a good state. And it's the same thing on the family level. Sometimes we have to learn how to have these, what I would call fierce conversations, respectfully, right? Because sometimes the trauma is happening at home, right? So what tools are we equipping the family with, you know, to ensure that they're able to have those conversations? And then again, there's that, just like you said, Stacey, that personal piece. So we're each accountable on different levels. We're accountable as individuals. We're accountable as a within our family, especially when we begin to know better, right? To do better. And then we're accountable as members within this community. So not just talk the talk. It's great to put up a hashtag Black Lives Matter right now. It's very popular. However, move beyond just the popularity of jumping on a bandwagon. What are you doing to mobilize change? What are we going to do as a community to hold ourselves accountable to ensure that there are spaces for people to be able to continue to improve their sense of mental well-being?
Thank you.
I just want to add.
Yes, go ahead, Bree. Go ahead.
I just want to add, like, just going off of what was said about like jargon. I feel like there's a lot of words that are often thrown around in the social work space and the mental health space. When we keep talking about safe spaces, I think something that's very, very, very important about safe spaces is not assuming that you know what a safe space is for someone. I think that we're always like, let's create a safe space. Let's create a safe space. But we're creating a safe space based on what we think is a safe space. The beginning of creating a space safe is asking, what is a safe space for you? And not assuming that I know what a safe space is because I've worked with somebody that looks like you, or because I've worked with somebody who's from the same country as you. So I think that's very, very important that we don't assume that we're creating a safe space because we're creating a space that we think is safe.
That's such a great reminder and something that I've just learned. Thank you so much. I realize now we are individuals and we have our different definitions on what a safe space is. I think so many times people like to categorize us as a community as one entity, a monolith. We are not a monolith. We're very diverse as a people. As you know, we're scattered on pretty much every continent of the world. So it's so important that we understand our lived experiences will differ, and that will dictate what a safe space is. The next question on social media is, how do you address the re-traumatization of our community as you facilitate the healing process?
I can speak on that a little bit. So what I want to say is looking at just trauma. I can't speak, guys. I can't speak. Re-traumatization. There we go. So with that, it's very particular, right? I would always encourage it to be a professional, right? But I know a lot of great people who don't necessarily have all the accolades that are really good at doing what they do. However, I think when it comes to mental health, it's really important for it to be around people who genuinely understand and know when it comes to mental health. That's what I'll say. I won't put emphasis on education and I won't put emphasis on life experience. I think both of them go hand in hand. There's a lot of people graduating from university that don't know how to apply half of the theories that they say they know, right? I can attest to that for sure. So the other thing is when it comes to dealing with situations. So I'll give you a visual, okay? Let's say you get a cut, right? And you tiptoe around the cut and you don't actually put dressing on the actual cut. It may never actually fully heal the way it could have been had you addressed it, right? So when you're dealing with trauma, sometimes you have to go where it hurts to be able to heal. And that's why I think sometimes people have a hard time even just understanding and going to therapy is because they don't want to go where it hurts. But that's where you're going to get the most healing. And a lot of people, sometimes I'm in a session and they start crying and we start, we're having a moment and they're like, I'm sorry, Tamara, I'm crying, I'm a mess. This is the worst time to have counseling. I'm like, actually, no, this is the best time because you're giving me your raw emotions. You can tap into exactly how you're feeling and not because sometimes the way how the brain works, and it's a great survival tool, it will make you almost forget the reality of what you're feeling. And it's a protective mechanism, right? So it'll make you forget exactly what you're feeling until something like a smell, touch, sight, sound, or something of that magnitude re-triggers that same exact moment that you experienced, that traumatic experience. So what I would like to say is that don't be afraid to go where it hurts because that's where you get the most successful results. You can always ease into it for sure, but definitely being strong to go there where it hurts is where you have your most power. That's where you get your power. And I will also highlight that not every professional is for you, right? We know not all doctors are for us. We know not everyone is created equal when it comes to those professions, right? We know some people are in the field that shouldn't be there. We know those teachers, we know those, and we're just kind of like, why are you here? Why are you in this field? Right? So those things really bother me. But anyways, I digress. Stay focused. So when it comes to you seeking someone to go on that journey with, make sure that it's someone that you feel comfortable with, because think about it. When you're opening up to someone, is it someone that you don't know and don't feel comfortable with, or is it someone that you feel comfortable with? Because that's the power in a therapeutic relationship, right? I want you to know that not every therapist you're going to go to, you're going to feel that connection. People may say the energy was off, the vibe was off, my spirit didn't take him, whatever you want to say. You have to really pay attention to how you feel when you're engaging with that person, because the reality is, and I heard one of our panelists say that without judgment, we all have judgment. I have judgment, and understanding that even within my judgment, I know how that impacts my interaction with certain people. So understanding that I may have a bias around something, but how am I going to not let that impede with my interaction with the person in front of me, so they continue to feel empowered and strength and strong. Right. So that's always my goal. And that's for me as a therapist, to be doing my work and understanding my position, my role, my power, my everything, because that's what informs my relationship with my clients, so that they do feel comfortable enough so we can go to where it's really scary for a lot of people. So that's what I would say when it comes to dealing with the re-traumatization within our community, is finding professionals that you feel comfortable going to that hard, dark, whatever adjective you want to use, space, and being able to feel that you can express yourself, and knowing that it's not a destination, it's a journey. Right. So knowing that it's going to be continuous, because even for me, I'm constantly learning about myself. Right. And I'm constantly dealing with emotions, and I have to make sure that I'm not projecting my own ideas and views on my clients and the people in front of me, right? Even with everything that's going on, I'm constantly thinking, what's my mental health like in order for me to help others? Because if I'm in a negative space, it's really, really hard for me to be putting someone else in a positive space, right? So I often have to really check out and just take a break from certain things. And the people around you, they'll know and understand that, to hopefully that's the idea, hopefully. So the people you surround yourself with, and I've heard the doctors speak a lot about that, it's definitely what helps to build you up or bring you down. So when my family knows that when I go to sleep during the day, it's not because I'm lazy, it's not because I'm tired, but because I need to literally shut down, and TV doesn't help, my phone doesn't help, because it's all around, right? Those are sources that are feeding. Because what I will say is every seed is planted. Not every seed will grow, but every seed is planted, right? So knowing that, I have to be really, really intentional in how I deal and navigate my world, right? Because if I'm not in a good place, I can't do justice to the people who are paying to see me. Right. So that's.
Thank you so much. And I'm just gonna take 2 more questions. I'm mindful it's 2:46, and I'm so sorry, guys, we went over time, but this is a very important conversation, and I'm really, really enjoying what I'm learning. And I know our viewers are, because they keep sending the questions, but unfortunately, I'll have to just bring it down to 2. So in addition, Tamara, you got a direct question that someone would like you to answer. This question is for Tamara. Would love to hear from her take on the issue of confidence in combating mental health, particularly within the context of anti-Black racism. I find that there is an individualization of mental health issues within our community, which results in self-blame and shame, and in turn silencing our trauma and pain. How can we as Black folks especially support each other in being vulnerable and not merely romanticizing resilience?
That's a great question. So how can we as Black folks effectively support each other in being vulnerable? I think again, it really comes down to our own individual experience as well. Because if we've never experienced vulnerability for ourselves, we can't necessarily create that same space that Brianna was talking about, that safety for others to also be vulnerable too, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of the stuff starts with us, and then it has a rippling effect around the people that you use as support. So I think one, checking yourself, and two, sometimes being vulnerable is just being present in the moment and not steering away from those experiences. Because sometimes there's a lot of layered emotions, right? We may be angry, but we might be sad, we might be frustrated, we might be overwhelmed. So there's a layering of things. So it's not always just one thing that we experience. It's often multifaceted. Can't speak, guys. I don't know what's going on. So I think it's really just about I really feel that it's about just trying to gather my thoughts.
Gather your thoughts, honey.
Because I think it's a really important question, and I think
it's a very deep
question.
Yeah.
I think I have to speak, because the reason why I'm having a hard time answering, because I want to have a dialogue with the person to really understand what exactly they mean, because I also want to give them a more contextual answer. I don't want to just glaze over. But I guess when I'm supporting someone, I know that I'm walking beside them. So I make that distinction of, when you're providing someone with support, is you're meeting them where they're at. So support, it should look like you're walking beside them. You shouldn't be in front of them, pulling them along, like, come on, let's do this. You shouldn't be behind them, pushing them along, saying, you can do this, keep going. Because sometimes people are not ready, and it may never, the opportunity for them to deal with whatever they're dealing with may never represent themselves because of the experience of the pushing or the pulling. Right. So that's why I said sometimes it really helps to have a professional, because we're able to kind of see where that person's at, and we can gently and therapeutically push them or pull them, but we know where the baseline is, right? Given the training and experience. So again, there's people who are really good at understanding that as well. So I don't just want to put emphasis on education, but I think that's what it really comes down to.
And I think at the end, when we wrap up, we're going to go through that resource section, and you're going to be providing your direct information on how that individual can actually directly get in touch with you. Right. Because you have phenomenal service that you provide on Fridays that a lot of people don't know about. So what I'm going to do is get through this last question, turn it over to Jamelia for the resource part of that. We'll go through that quickly, and then we'll wrap up this discussion. We thank you guys for your patience. We're so sorry we went over time, but again, this is a very important conversation we're having today. And it's something that, you know, when we feel the conversation is flowing, it's very, very difficult to cut it, because we want to make sure that we hear the information in its full context. And in terms of these keynote speakers, they're experts, they've lived it, and they're actually in the space doing it. So I wanted to give them an opportunity to share. And so this is why, unfortunately, we went a bit over time. Our last question of the day is, how do you manage people who have been damaged by emotional abuse and reads meaning into every little thing people do to help? How do you manage people who have been damaged by emotional abuse and reads meaning into every little thing people do to help? That's how it was phrased. I don't really know the last part, but in general, how do people manage who have unfortunately who have experienced emotional abuse, and how do we get them over to the other side? Does anyone have any sort of insights? Yes.
I can start. I think I have questions about the question. And they were reflective questions. My question is, why do you feel like you need to manage the person? Like, what role are you taking in this person's healing? And I think that's a big thing, because it's like sometimes we feel like either some sort of guilt or something, or the need to make a person heal. And the reality is that we can't do that. A person, as much as we can help people heal, and there's resources that we can offer people to heal, we can, there's counselors, there's therapists. At the end of the day, every therapist, or most therapists, should say that they are not going to provide you with healing. They will facilitate a space for you to explore things and reach a place of healing, but we can't force people into healing. So I guess my question of reflection for the person who wrote that question is, what role do you feel like you have to play in this person's healing? And do you want the healing more than they do?
Beautifully said. And sorry, Jem, were you going to say something?
No, I think she really brings a good point around like accountability, right? So, you know, who is accountable for their healing, right? You know, there's a Jamaican saying, it's like, you can bring the horse to the well, but you can't make them drink, right? So for me, it's like, when I'm looking at somebody who's going through a traumatic experience, I can understand, I can look to empathize, but I also have to understand my boundaries within my role as being able to be able to help them. And as Tamara said, sometimes it is a counselor, but also sometimes it's looking at their circle of support, right? Especially for males, sometimes hearing it from a female, especially if that has been an issue in their relationships with like their mother or with other females in their lives, if there's been some trauma there, sometimes it's looking at someone who's a neutral party who can facilitate that conversation without crossing the boundaries of sharing things that you know, without consulting someone first to make sure that that's okay. You know, like so an example of that is if I know that somebody may have a mentorship type role in that person's life, right? And that they're going to be a neutral sounding board, then I might want to see if there's an opportunity for them to support them and to help them become more aware, right? Because if it's not my job to heal them, but I can look at what I can do, as Tamara had the idea of coming alongside to support them. And I think that's a big piece. And then it's again looking at what can I realistically do? What is within reason, right? Everything has boundaries, right? It's just like if you're playing basketball and if somebody wants to throw the ball out of bounds every 5 seconds, guess what? It's a foul on them, right? So it's understanding they have a responsibility in that and to hold them accountable, but also to hold yourself accountable to keep those boundaries in place to say, if this is going to affect my own personal well-being, there's a problem here, right? And then it's also, again, looking at, is there opportunities for me without overextending myself in a way that's not healthy to help them to be aware of those boundaries within themselves that's creating toxicity in their life, or that is exasperating, you know, a concern that hasn't been yet addressed.
And going back to sorry,
Brianna, go.
I was actually going to say something you said, so go ahead.
Okay. I was going to say, if you're so if you have to deal with someone because, you know, maybe you live with them, maybe it's a child of yours, maybe whatever the case may be, a way of kind of dealing with someone who's who has gone through certain experiences is helping to highlight when they're doing the thing that it is that they're doing. Because sometimes people have a hard time, you know, seeing what it is that they're doing. And whenever you're highlighting that, again, you have to be pretty particular because they'll blow up and they won't receive the message. And so when you're doing that, what I'll always say, and this always stuck with me when I did my placement at the hospital in the mental health department, is there was a quick little story. There was an angry client, belligerent, cussing, whatnot. And I was kind of, as a student, I was like, ooh, how they gonna fix this? So when I came and I spoke to the counselor, she was just kind of like, well, the way how I de-escalated is I met it with validation. I wasn't trying to say, no, you're wrong. No, you should be doing this. You could have done it. I said, no, you're right. I could have done blah, blah, blah. And you go from there. And then you say, okay, so next time when this happens, I can blah, blah, blah. So with this person who is being very particular and saying, oh, you may never do this, because it seems like with every little thing you try to do, it's not enough, is what I'm hearing from somewhere in the world. That's what I'm hearing, is that you can say, no, I understand why you may see this as frustrating, or you feel betrayed, or you feel that I'm not there for you, but it's been very hard for me to blah, blah, blah. So you validate whatever it is, like I can see how, or I understand how, or I know that. So you're agreeing with them, and then you kind of proceed with explain. But when you do this makes it really hard for blah, blah, blah. So what I ask my clients is, was this helpful? So you can pose that same question to the person who's being emotional and saying, So I was trying to, this is not helpful when you do X, Y, and Z. It's the easiest way for people to understand that what it is that they're doing is not helping the situation, but in turn adding more fire to the fuel fire. Thank you. Yeah. So that's a quick little tidbit because I know we're hopefully I made sense with my little spiel.
And Bree, you said you wanted to touch upon something quickly, then we'll wrap up this conversation.
I think she covered.
She did? Okay.
Yeah.
If I could tie in one last piece at the end in regards to what Tamara said, is that timing is so key. Timing and picking your battles. Because just like you said, if I'm in the moment and I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, you go and talk to me like that A, B, C, D, F, G, and that person's already flipped their lid. Their brain is offline. May not be in the space where they may want to be able to access that empathy, but again, maybe based on past experiences and them trying to unlearn negative responses, in that moment, you have to ask yourself, am I going to get the best response for them?
Right.
Right. So it's looking at when are they most, sorry, say it again.
I was saying timing and delivery.
Yes, timing and delivery is everything. I remember that one of my professional mentors once said to me, if you give somebody a gift, they love it. You could even do that with a pile of crap. It's all in delivery. If you put it in a nice box with a bow and how you give it to them, they'll still say, oh, thank you. Even if inside they could be reeling. But it's just like Brianna touched on, such a key point, timing and delivery, right? And also knowing to pick our battles. Am I rattling off a list of everything you've done wrong? And is this person somebody who you know probably didn't have certain, certain supportive environments where, they struggle to take ownership and now they're trying to learn that? Give them space to do that. It's like teaching a baby to walk, right? They're not going to start running tomorrow. It's allowing that baby to crawl, you know what I mean? To learn how to stand up, to learn how to take a few steps, and affirming when they do that. Because when we, just like a baby, you affirm what they do, it's repeatable. And it's the same thing for us in our human relationships. It's not just about validating or recognizing rather what they've done wrong, but also recognizing when they do it right. Because then that's something that they may not have heard. And that's how we can be a part of the healing experience without taking it over as our own duty.
Yes, yes. And on that note, we're going to flip it over to sharing with the viewers resources that the keynote speakers have put together. We'll just quickly go through that because we don't want this conversation to just be in a vacuum. We want to leave you with things that you can utilize to help support your mental health, your self-care, and your overall holistic well-being. So I'm going to turn it over to Jamelia and she'll go through it, and also the keynote speakers will touch upon some of the services that they provide. And then we will end the conversation with giving each keynote speaker a minute, final thoughts, and we'll turn it over to Dr. Olu and we'll wrap it up. So bear with us. Give us like 8 minutes, just 8 more minutes.
Awesome. Okay. All right. Thank you for the opportunity to share these resources. I think it's really important because oftentimes we're having these conversations and the thought comes to my mind, okay, well, what am I going to do now? Who do I speak to now? How can I, receive support now, especially when we're in a place of readiness. So one of the supports that is really helpful is the African Community Services of Peel. So if you're in Peel region, they do offer treatment for substance abuse. They do offer help with housing, employment services. So I encourage you to take note of this resource, write it down, and follow up to it to your avail. We can go to the next slide. Awesome, thank you. All right, so again, there are different things that again affect our sense of well-being. So if you know somebody who may be struggling with, substance abuse, there's also the substance abuse program for African, Canadian, and Caribbean youth. So youth and young adults are able to access that service. You may know a young person who, is, involved in perhaps, we talked about community and being able to be in a healthy community, right? And sometimes when we're having relationships or looking to find our sense of community, we can get ourselves involved with the wrong people. So a zero gun violence movement really helps to mobilize and create safe spaces for communities. It's a great resource to take a look at. Caribbean, African Canadian services really focuses on again, the psychosocial services for youth within the community, from counseling and other one-on-one supports. If you're looking for support with COVID, whether it's learning how to apply for CERB, your rights, if you're, have any concerns as a tenant, I encourage you to take a look at the Warden Woods Community Center. Okay, Taibu Community Health Center is really great because they look at the physical needs as well as social and emotional needs. So whether that is, from counseling services or physical ailments or, physical diagnoses, they're able to support you. There is a telemedicine line that if you have concerns, you may think that you have a ongoing health challenge and are not able to see a doctor right away, you can definitely call in and receive support that way. All right, I'm just talking really quickly about my program, Posse Talk, that is running out of the Eclipse Youth Center with Youth Rapport Youth and Family Services. So sometimes individuals find that counseling either is not a good fit for them, or sometimes it's not that it's a good fit, but they need to understand what counseling really is. And so we've created this as a bridge to formal counseling with other organizations such as Peel Children's Center. What it is usually about a 45-minute session for us to create some short-term goals to listen to young people between the ages of 14 to 24 and to provide some mentorship and guidance, and then to look at other resources that we can utilize to support that young person. For more information to book a Posse Talk session, you can reach out to me via email. It's jmorgan@rapportyouth.com. I think the difference with formal counseling is that there's not a set amount of sessions. You will receive up to 6 sessions and 2 buffers. And our goal is to help to connect you to other services. You can also check out our Instagram at Eclipse Youth. And I also do have a few events coming up. If you go to 7keyevents.com, for those who may be, again, looking at tools to support individuals, we are doing a Posse Talk forum/webinar about tools to navigate difficult conversations with individuals struggling with mental health, as well as a workshop on the 5 keys to positive youth engagement. So you can go to the next slide.
Yeah, and just before we wrap up, just if the keynote speakers, please, I know some of you guys have other things you have to do, and we're so thankful for your time. So if each person with their slide, if you can just kind of sum it up in like 30 seconds, I'm so sorry, just to be mindful of the time because we went over time, that'll be really, really appreciative. Thank you so
Perfect.
much.
No problem. I'll quickly touch on What's Up Walk-In. It is a free walk-in counseling service. And again, if you're trying to look for support, but you're not sure if you need ongoing counseling, but you're looking for a trained clinician or a therapist, it's an awesome opportunity as within our community to receive support. They do have an online model. Please avail yourself to the numbers on the screen. All right, and I do run a group for young women. It is called Girls Night In. We really focus on positive identity, healthy minds, healthy bodies, and active living. We run Thursdays from 6:30 to 8:30. Right now, our cohort is on a wait list. However, our next session, which starts at the end of July, we are currently doing intakes for that program. And again, you can reach me at jmorgan@rapportyouth.com.
And what I'll just quickly say is they just did a session on makeup, how to do makeup session. And I heard, and I know because I know the facilitator who did it, and it was super dope. And I really encourage that Girls Night In program for women and particularly young girls who don't really know who to talk to. Definitely get plugged in with Jamelia. And we'll go over to Stacey Ann Buchanan to talk about this very much revolutionary, and I will say a leading podcast that all y'all better be subscribed to. So I'll just hand it over to Stacey Ann to talk about.
You'd like me to talk about it, Jacqueline?
Absolutely, yes, yes, yes.
Okay, sure. So I have a podcast where it's called the Blind Stigma Podcast. So it's franchised off the documentary, The Blind Stigma documentary. So the podcast is Taking Back Your Narratives, and what we do, we interview people that have lived experience, clinical experience, caregiver experience, anybody that has a powerful story to share that they're willing to share about health within the Black community. And like I said, our goal is really to create a safe and constructive space for our audience, for our hosts, and more importantly for our guests to share their experiences, and also by taking back our narratives. The Black narrative when it comes to mental illness, sometimes there's a lot of cloudiness around that. So this is an opportunity that we give everyone to come and just be raw, be vulnerable, and to be honest. And this right here is a documentary. You can the podcast is viewable on all major platforms: Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, Google, you name it, it's there. Also, the Blind Stigma documentary, it's there for you guys. Anyone that's interested, you can watch it on YouTube. Just put in the Blind Stigma and you can watch the documentary. It's about an hour long, and it shares the experience of 5 people, including myself, on their trials and triumphs of mental illness.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I'll turn it over to Tamara, who will share her resources and an important resource for Fridays. If y'all don't know about it, she'll definitely let you guys know about it right now.
So as COVID arose, me and my associates felt that it would be really helpful if we offered free sessions on Fridays. So you can go over to the website HNA, so all letters, practice at hnapractice.com, where you can sign up. So you can do book your appointments on your own, you can reschedule on your own, and you can cancel your appointments all on your own. Our availability is as such, and it's every Friday up until July 1st. As of right now, we may extend it, but it just depends on resources and even also our mental health. We also have Musing of Minds, where this month in July, because we just had one that passed where we were talking about bridging the gap of spirituality and reality using a CBT framework. Really good, thoughtful discussion around that, and also timely. This month in July, the coming month, we'll be talking about generational trauma. So it's free to register. Both are free to register. And if you wanted more information about our services, again, it's all on our website. And if you want to email me questions, info@hnapractice.com. And if you wanted to follow me on Instagram, it's h.associates. We also offer, sorry, I was trying to figure out, I'm like, I know there's another free resource. We also offer free consultations in case you're unsure about who we are or what the experience would be, so that you don't have to also commit to anything.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. This has been a very thought-provoking, for me, learning, therapeutic, great afternoon with you fabulous leaders. I don't like to say women who are leaders, you're leaders, period. But I do recognize we are women and we have a lot of strength in what we carry. And so I just want to say to Stacey M. Buchanan, Tamara Henningham, Brianna, Chanel Phillip, and Jamelia Morgan, thank you for your time. I also want to say thank you to Dr. Olutoyin Oyalade for giving us this platform to utilize this space. I'm going to turn it over to her, but my name is Jacqueline Chuanuka. I'm just so honored to have been able to moderate this discussion. As you know, we'll be having session 2 this coming next Saturday that will be talking about money matters. And we will be talking about financial responsibility as it pertains to generational wealth. We'll have another panelist of experts that will be there, and that will be happening on, I believe it's Saturday, June 13th. And then the last session, session 3, Gaining New Ground, Step-by-Step Process to Home Ownership. We have had the honor and privilege of securing 5 real estate moguls in the GTA. You probably know these guys, and it's all Black men. They are, I'm just, to get all of them in one space, because COVID has kind of confined us to like one spot. So we have taken the opportunity to secure them for session 3. And as you see up here, this is going to be a fantastic discussion on how we millennials, how we people of African descent can really start to get on owning property. We all know money and wealth generation starts with ownership, land ownership. And so to have these moguls be here in one space, I am very excited because I know all of them and they all know each other, but to come together and have this discussion and for them to give their time on how they got started and to know the rules of engagement, on how the financial institutions view you when you come and ask for a mortgage. They're going to be sharing very key nuggets of wisdom. And I'm just so excited. That's happening Saturday, June 20th. We all hope that you'll join us then as well to wrap up this 3-part series of Gaining New Grounds, the Kickstart to Success. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Olu. Please, doctor, share with us final remarks before we conclude for the afternoon.
Thank you so much for those enlightening points. Thank you so much for each of the speakers. I would say this is a job well done. You guys have you've killed it, like I'm told from time to time. Thank you so much. I must say that I found it quite enlightening and insightful. A lot of questions just kept coming and rolling in, and I just need to apologize to those folks on YouTube and Facebook. We must have about 10 different questions, I'm told, that we've just not been able to take. We would have to plan around that. Perhaps there will be a repeat of this, or we would find a way to get those questions across to the various speakers so we can have their insights, the questions answered, and then find a way to forward those questions and the answers to those ones asking. Thank you so much all for joining us this afternoon. I need to quickly mention that we have Rod, that's the CEO of AfriConnect, all the way from Rwanda. He's in Rwanda right now. Thank you so much, Rod, for joining us, and Pukia Jishafe for joining us from Nigeria. Thank you. We have quite a number of people from those various parts on Facebook right now and on YouTube. Thank you so much. We hope that you will join us again next Saturday. For instance, next Saturday, we're talking about money matters, like Jackie mentioned. Has it ever occurred to you? Have you ever asked yourself the question, what is budgeting and why do I need to budget? Some of these questions will get answered next week. Why do we need to budget? Budgeting needs to be a part of those decisions that we make so that we can prepare for the future. Why? The future belongs to those who prepare for it. Definitely does. And budgeting becomes that topic that tells us, instead of wondering where all our money went, it just tells us where our money should go. And that's why we need to learn about budgeting instead of wondering. And when we do the right budgeting and we put the necessary measures in place, then we can begin to talk about gaining new grounds, even after such a huge pandemic and devastating experience of the last few months. And that's why we're bringing us all back together again next Saturday and the upcoming Saturday. Thank you so much, guys. Stacy, Ann, and Jamilia, Brianna, and Tamara. Jackie, thank you so much. Imanzi, thank you so much. And Kizito, the gentleman who refused to say a single word on the call. Thank you so much for supporting us right through. We really appreciate you. We're hoping that once we wrap this up, we'll still stay around. We have the opportunity to do that, and we can chat with a few other people that are still on the call. We look forward to seeing you next week.
Dr. Olu, before we go, can I have every keynote speaker provide your social media handles and presence where people can follow you and add you so that they know how to get in touch with you, if you don't mind?
Absolutely. I think you could actually put it in the chat room. The group
okay,
chat.
We'll do that. We'll do that instead so that everyone can get that information. And I just would like for 30 seconds, each keynote speaker to share a final thought. And then we'll call it a day. I'll throw it to Tamara to go, and then whoever wants to go next.
Well, first of all, I just wanted to say thank you guys for creating this awesome platform to have such a timely conversation around so many things that are affecting us. What I will say, and I always say this to my clients, is you already have the tools to be successful. It's just a matter of figuring out how to highlight that and use them more consistently.
Beautiful. Awesome. Jamilia?
If I were to go to the playground today and tell everybody to clear out because I'm going to build a house there, you'd be looking at me crazy. You'd be wondering, what is she going to do? Because a house needs a strong foundation, right? So when we're checking on ourselves, it's looking at, well, what's going on in my foundation that's causing me to react this way? And us asking those questions is not about coming from a place of vulnerability, but it's coming from a place of strength. Life is not just about our losses, but it's also about lessons. Our losses are our lessons. So the more we can tap into the things that have been a loss for us, there are lessons in there that can teach us and empower us as well as help others.
Beautiful, beautiful. Brianna?
All right. Yes, like Tamara said, thank you so much for creating this space. This past 2 weeks has been crazy. It's nothing new to us. We've been experiencing this for a long time, but the past few weeks for the world has been crazy. And I think that something huge is that I think people said this already, but like the silencing of Black voices is very serious. The silencing of Black women voices is very serious. And right now I feel very heard. So thank you for this platform. My thing is always be patient with yourself. Because healing is a process. Yes. Dealing with mental health is a process. And I think that sometimes we offer people more grace than we offer ourselves. Yes. So I would say be patient with yourself, offer yourself grace, and know that it's not the fastest to the post. And you'll get there with persistence and intentionality.
Beautiful.
Very good.
Final remarks, Stacey M. Buchanan.
Oh, wow. Okay. I would say this. First of all, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. I appreciate every of you, and I've learned so much from you amazing panelists, you ladies, you guys. I've learned so much. One of my favorite sayings, and it's a tough one, is to know that everything that you've gone through in life, it doesn't matter whether it's good or bad, it doesn't happen it happens for you. And every pain is your purpose. And I want you to use that as a way to go through it, from it, and then just glow.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much for your time. Every single one of you beautiful ladies, we thank you, we honor you. We are so looking forward to see your destiny and how great it will be and how you will impact the world and our societies. We are so honored. Thank you, Dr. Olu, for being a giant, for being someone that has walked the walk and is talking the talk. Thank you to the whole Casa team, Imanzi, Chizito, Bomo, the social media team, Ore, Ifi, Angie, everyone behind the scenes working. We thank you. You know, and I'll just say, you know, at the end of the day, we are one people. If it's Jamaica to Uganda, to Rwanda, to Zimbabwe, to Grenada, to Nigeria, we are one people, and we need to start thinking that way. And when we think that way, we are more inclined to trusting each other with our wellness, with our resources to build our communities up. You know, Stacey and beautiful daughter, her daughter is gorgeous. And I want that little girl to know she has aunties in a community that she can come to. She can come to Auntie Jackie one of these days. Auntie, I really want to do this. Okay, honey, come over. We'll figure it out. We need to start creating that space of raising children in a village. We are in North America. It may not be our ancestral home, but we are here. So what are we going to do about where we are right now? And so I really want us to take away from that. We need to start building more cohesion and real, genuine trust in each other and really investing in our destinies, in our resources. No one else is going to do it but us. And so I really want to leave it at that as to how we're going to move into session 2 with well creation. And then finally, how we're going to start owning up a bunch of this property out here. Because listen, I don't know about y'all, but I'm about that life. You know what I mean? Like, I'm really trying to retire really nice. I'm really on that mindset. I don't know how, you know, God knows, but I do know I have now the mindset to start to be successful now. And I thank you guys for your time. We look forward to seeing you guys next Saturday. And on that note, we send our blessings, our love. Be good to yourself. Be patient with yourself, like Brianna said. And we thank you. Have a great afternoon. Blessings.